Welcome to this episode of Qatsyr Harvest. We're exploring the prophetic testimony of Yoel, one of the last three prophets, as he speaks of the last days and what the world should be receptive to knowing. We're here with Leah and with Wookie and the co-pilot seat, so this should be a good program. In our last episode, we considered this statement, which reads, "Indeed, a powerful and potent force is he who engages and acts upon his words. Truly valuable and important, capable and competent, even empowering and magnifying. Gadol. The day of Yahweh will be exceedingly awesome for whoever is lifted up and carried away by him." A rather profound statement. We're speaking of the last days. We're speaking in the prelude to the final two harvests and then to Yahweh's return with Dod. And the great and magnificent day of Yahweh is Yom Kippurim, the day of reconciliations, when he will arrive with his beloved son, who will be in that moment as brilliant as the sun and who will elicit tremendous emotion from Israel as we all cry for the Messiah that so many have ignored for so long, the one that we have pierced. And so it is interesting to notice that Yahweh is telling us through Yoel that there will be a potent and powerful force that will be unleashed prior to this time, and that those who engage and who act upon the words that he conveys will find that they are indeed important and empowering, magnifying, improving their lives, because God is anticipating a marvelous homecoming on the day of Yahweh, which will be exceedingly awesome for whoever is lifted up and carried away by him. So we recognize that there are many different ways that we can view this testimony. And it can be interpreted in a variety of different perspectives, all of which are likely true. Yahweh's voice is indeed atzum. It's a potent and powerful force. But God is not speaking directly to his people, not at this time. He won't until he returns. He has been told that his people don't want to hear from him, and he has agreed with them, saying that he will speak through others. So this actually can't be Yahweh's voice, as potent and powerful as it has been and will eventually be. So God is speaking through his chosen implement. Ashah, he who engages and acts upon the dabar, the words, is going to be considered valuable and important. Well, Yahweh has conveyed his word to us, and it is true that whoever engages and acts upon what God has conveyed to us is going to be considered valuable by God, important to God, and enriched and empowered by God. But this admonition, since it's speaking of someone who is going to speak for God at this time, could also be the words in these books that you see behind me that are important to God's family and empowering for the covenant. So this means that the one articulating these pronouncements is, from God's perspective, an effective communicator, and his message is transformative. But, so are those who are empowered by what he has done. In other words, Yahweh is using this man as leverage. He has enabled him to convey his message. And as a result, those who act upon what he has to say will in turn be empowered and enriched, their lives forever improved. This is how God has always worked. This is how he communicated to the children of Israel during the Exodus through Moshe. This is how he related to his people through Dod. This is how he communicated through the likes of Yeshaya and Yirmiah as well. So once these recipients of Yahweh's testimony, representing now the covenant family, engage and act upon what Yahweh has announced through his Kol, his chosen voice, the one speaking for him, they become capable. They're competent. And we are family, and God is our Father. Our brother is king. So no matter whether we view Debar Hugh, his word, as the message conveyed by the voice that God is speaking through, or the very word of God, since they are designed by definition to be one and the same, both are uncommonly valuable and important to God's people. This would be consistent with Solomon explaining that all of Israel, and indeed the whole world, including Goyim, should listen to what this man has to say and act upon it. It is exactly the same message as we have read elsewhere. And as a result, both he and he, lower end, capital H and he, this voice of Yahweh and God himself, will be respected for having done their part to fulfill the promises to lift Yehudim out of harm's way and to show them the path home. So regardless of whether Yoel is addressing the voice or the greatness of our God, since Yahweh has inspired this man and he inspired his prophets, he is the one enabling the result. The one thing that matters in this regard is that everyone who can hear my voice listen to what Yahweh has to say through me for you, so that you're among those who are lifted up and carried away on Shabuah and Towrah, or at the very least, as a last resort, you're ready for the sacrifice of the red heifer so that you'll be present for Kippurim.
Better sooner than later, because later will have come at a price.
Yes, Leah is of course right. There are numerous advantages of sooner. First of all, if you respond sooner, then you have 11 months now to prepare yourself for the Shabuah harvest. But that 11 months could also be used to prepare others for it. And that's really the most important. We find that so many people are fixated on preparing themselves so that they can capitalize on a harvest. But if that is your intent, you're likely to miss it. The more important approach, the more godly approach, is to study so that you're prepared to help others find the way. And if you start your process of journeying to God and learning what he is offering and expecting in return sooner rather than later, then you're prepared to help others. You're prepared to increase the quality and quantity of God's family.
Yes, it's a harvest.
Yes.
To harvest, for those who don't produce food, it takes many hands to produce a good harvest.
The harvest is more joyful when we're all pulling and working in the same direction for the same result, and that we have a bountiful result to show for it. And this is particularly true come Shabuah, because everyone who benefits from Shabuah will be removed from the time of Yaakov's troubles, not only guaranteed of their place in forevermore and at God's side through all to eternity. It is assured where those who delay are going to subject themselves to the time of Yaakov's troubles. And during that a period of 7 years, so many are going to die. So if you don't avail yourself of this opportunity now, then the likelihood is that you'll be among the majority who succumb over the time of Israel's troubles and don't make it to the end. So that ought to be another motivation for sooner rather than later. And even if you miss then the Towrah harvest after having foregone the Shabuah harvest, that actually puts you in an inferior position. It's still a potentially wonderful position, but inferior to those who have been harvested, because all of those who will have capitalized on Shabuah and Towrah are going to be significantly empowered. They'll be raised up from 3.5 dimensions to 7. They'll be enriched, emancipated. They will be enabled. And they will be able to transition between spiritual and material beings, while those who are gathered for the final homecoming as the mortal remnant of Yisrael, they are mortal. And therefore, they're not going to have the same capabilities. And these are marvelous capabilities. So if you act now and capitalize on what Dod has done to fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim, and avail yourself of the Shabuah Qatsyr and the Towrah Lakot, so much the better for you. And if you act, as my wife has said, soon, then you will have the satisfaction of knowing that through your studies in which you shared, you will also have enlarged and enriched the quality of the covenant family forevermore. And as we move forward, you need to know this is going to be a very dark time.
Indeed.
Yeah. And
you're not going to want to see what is coming.
yeah,
It's
what's
not
coming.
pretty.
Yeah,
It's not.
Yoel says that what's coming is going to be far worse than anything that has been endured by humankind up to this point. And you consider what Jews endured at the hands of, the likes of the Egyptians, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Macedonians, 3 times under the Romans, the Roman Catholics, the first horde of murderous Muslims, the Ottomans, the Crusaders, Byzantines. On and on it goes, the Holy Roman Empire. Eventually, the Nazis, now Marxists and Muslims again. It's been horrific. And nothing that you have endured, that you have witnessed, that you have read about in your past will compare to what's going to happen over the next 7 years. This is going to be an awful time. Now, today we witnessed something I never thought we'd ever see. And I knew that Donald Trump was going to betray Israel. It's written in the prophets. So it's going to happen over the next 11 months. And that means that there's going to be a fake Palestinian state imposed on Israel, which will make Israel indefensible. The prophets have said so. It's blazoned into, burnished into Yeshaya 17 and 18. And we know that the United States is the primary culprit, so that Donald Trump is the great betrayer. We know that to be true. But what we didn't know is that he would be so caustic, so filled with vitriol and hatred for Jews. His meltdown today on the back lawn, headed to Marine One, so he could go and have his war conference with his NATO pals. It was despicable. So in an unguarded moment, Trump showed that he is an anti-Semite, that he is exactly as we have cast him. He is the great betrayer. But, the positive news is that when it gets the darkest is when the light shines the brightest and when it is most needed. Therefore, this is a time when Yahweh will approach his people again, when they will need him more than ever before. Now, Yahweh has always been appreciative of those who engage and act upon his word, but now with time in such short supply, with foes more numerous than ever before. This witness that we are sharing with you becomes vital. And yet, so few volunteer, such that the verb ashah, to act and engage, was scribed in the third person masculine singular. That's not encouraging. It's baffling that the most enjoyable and rewarding job in the universe goes largely unfulfilled. And I've shared this so many times before, that the reason I was asked to do as I am doing isn't because, well, I won a contest and there was this long line of participants and everybody was doing somersaults to impress God. And he says, hey, that guy over there, I think he's got something special going for him. Nope. That was the only one in the line. So even as the sands of time run through man's hourglass, God remains an object of reverence for some and a source of fear for many, depending upon our attitude and approach toward him. Either way, this will be the final call. Return and be restored, or remain to die with the rest of humanity. There's not going to be another chance.
Last chance for romance, Israel.
Yeah, last chance for romance. And this time, Wookiee, the romance is with D-O-G spelled the other way. To be Leia's cohort and dog. That is a pretty good life. Again, under the auspices of full disclosure. English Bibles typically associate Gadol and Yom together. Well, I have ascribed it to the previous sentence, recognizing that it can serve as an adjective or a noun. Gadol, which speaks of being valuable and important, capable and competent, is from Gadal, which means to grow by promoting that which magnifies, which empowers. So by the day of YAHOWAH, it's going to be great, since the prophet said as much with Yare Moed previously, and calling it an extraordinarily awesome time of enormous respect and reverence. Therefore, I think Gadol is affirming the merit of acting upon the power that is latent in Yahweh's testimony. So as we would expect from God, he not only chooses a person whose capabilities, character, and courage he perceives as exemplary, and he develops that individual based upon those natural proclivities, so that he empowers him to be strong, to be steadfast, to be confident and bold, as is his style, such that he is up to the task, so that he can serve in this manner. This is what we have anticipated since we discovered that Yahweh had promised to uniquely equip his coal voice at this time with his 7 Ruach spirits, the accounting of which is found in Yeshaya 11. And since the only individual who meets this criteria that Yahweh has set forth through the prophets, and describing his Nakri and Nakar, his observant foreigner, his Choder, this secondary branch off the main stem. The Zeroah, a capable arm sowing and cultivating the seeds of the harvest. His sons Bashar, herald, the Malak, messenger, and the Ed, witness, is Yada, the one who knows.
Who?
Yada.
Wait, who? Yada.
Yeah, there just really isn't another option. That's why when Leah first wrote me, now I don't know how many years ago, it seems like
18 plus.
Yeah, it seems like it's been,
19
well, I would say at least 18 years ago.
plus. Yeah.
Her first line is, who do you think you are?
No, who are you and why are you doing this?
Yeah. Who are you and why are you doing this? Well, the answer is Yada.
Yeah.
I am the Bashar. I am the Nakri and the Nakar, the Zeroah, the Choder, the Malak, the Adama Parah,
The neck.
the man from Edom. All of these things.
The
And I'm all of these
Zakar
things because God's people mean a lot to the Almighty, and restoring his beloved sons due for having fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bakota means a great deal to Yahweh. And he wants his people to capitalize on what his son has achieved.
He's literally the king's herald. That king is David,
Yeah.
the one you ignored, denied.
Dode is returning, and there wouldn't have been a single Yehudim who would have known that he was the Messiah, the Son of God, and the returning King, as well as the Savior who fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Makodim, opening the door to life, perfecting us by taking our guilt away, and then enabling us to be part of the covenant family. Had Yahweh not enabled this process. So,
if not for Yada, we're all dumb and groping in the dark.
it's true. And the reason we know this to be true is that from the time of the Exodus, 3,400 and almost 70 years ago now, to the time that Yahweh asked me to do this with him, there was not a single person on the planet, much less a Yahud, who knew and used Yahweh's name. Not a single one that knew that Jesus never existed, because he was a connived counterfeit of David, and that David is the actual Messiah, the Son of God, who was crucified in 33 CE, that he is the former and returning king. There isn't a single person on the planet that would have realized that. They would have not have realized that the Shabuah harvest is 11 months from now, or that it was the beginning of the time of Israel's troubles, nor known the date of the Towrah gleaning, have any clue as to who the red heifer was. They're still looking out there for a red cow.
A cow. Yeah.
Have no idea that Dode was the Lamb of God fulfilling Passover. No clue as to when the day of reconciliations would transpire, what would occur on that date, who was returning, or that
not a damn clue.
That the red heifer would prepare the adulterous woman to be betrothed to the returning king. Not a single person would have had any idea about any of this. They would not have known the terms and conditions of the covenant relationship, or how the benefits are enabled through the mikre that Dode fulfilled.
And why is that? Because we're too goddamn religious, busy playing religion, religious dress up, religious worship the rabbi, worship the dead rabbi, and on and on and on it goes until everyone's stuck in a quagmire.
Yes, Jews have been belligerent towards God, antagonistic towards God, have rejected God, have written Yahweh's name out of their lives.
Entirely.
Over 3,400 years. And as a result, they can read the Torah but have no idea what it actually says.
Not a clue.
They read the prophets and are clueless as to what they conveyed.
Dumbfounded.
A long time has gone by since the first word of the Torah was revealed, or that the last word from the last of the prophets, Malachi, was revealed over that 1,000-year period from 1447 BCE to 447. And in all of that time, not a single person was able to put the whole story together, to frame the portrait that God had painted for us, and to show all of the details and how they all fit together to compose this beautiful picture. and to explain every significant aspect of it, past, present, and future, so that you were in a position to restore your relationship with Yahweh and be part of happily ever after.
Well, but we're too busy hyphenating even the name God, G hyphen D. We're ridiculous.
Yeah, why would
Utterly ridiculous.
you? Would you hyphenate a one-syllable word? And think about just how stupid it is. You know that Gad, which is spelled the same way in Hebrew, is the name of one of the 12 tribes. And that Yahweh uses the Hebrew word for God and gods all the time, and he never hyphenates it. He speaks of false gods using El and Elohim. I mean, it's just the whole thing is ridiculous. And God is not the name of a god. It is a title, which is ascribed to false gods and to the only real one. God has a name. It's Yahweh. If you don't use it, then you do not know him, and he does not know you. And that's the problem in Israel. That's doesn't solve the whole problem, but so long as that problem exists, we can't even move to the next one. You can't resolve the second problem, which is an ignorance of Dode and what he represents, until you resolve the first one, which is an acceptance of Yahweh's name. So it should be obvious. If it isn't, I will let you in on a secret. I was not capable or qualified on my own recognizance. So Yahweh had to do something that he has never done before. And he had to intervene with the full force of his 7 spirits, including the very spirit of Yahweh, to get this done such that a flawed implement became serviceable. And together, empowered by the 7 spirits, we became a force, potent, powerful, important. And frankly, I was afforded this opportunity, as I've shared with you so many times, because nobody else wanted it. So
I don't think many are capable of writing 30 plus books in the way that you presenting the material the way you've done it.
Yeah,
It's quite a feat of not just logic and reason, but ultimately making connections and breaking ground where it's never been done before.
Leah, I think there is considerable truth to that. There, obviously, God is enormously capable, and he created mouths. So when Moshe said, I don't speak very clearly, and therefore I can't do that much, and we want me to do, and Yahweh said, "Hey, stupid." And I didn't say stupid, but I'm sure
I created that mouth. Don't you think I can get it to work?
Yeah, don't you think that since I created your mouth, I can make it work and get this done? And so I recognize that Yahweh would have been capable of taking Wookiee. And
I don't think so.
And if he had opposable thumbs, perhaps getting Wookiee to type out 35 books.
I think he genuinely looked for someone with the chutzpah and
that's not his style.
Yeah.
Yahweh could have picked anyone in 1000 BCE, but he picked Dode, and he had reasons for picking Dode. So it's important we look at what traits did Dode have that were unique. He was brilliant. He was articulate. He knew how to make connections so as to understand. He was a prolific writer and a very articulate spokesperson. He had passion. He had courage. He was bold. He had character. Dode was an extraordinary individual with many attributes that God found appealing. Then he chose to work through this man because of the attributes he possessed. There is no reason to assume that God changed at this late date and said, I'm going to prove how really talented I am by picking the dumbest person on the planet and seeing if I can write 35 books and produce many thousands of blogs and radio interviews through the Village Idiot. Hardly. I don't think that's his style.
Hardly.
Why would he have picked Dode? Why would he have picked Moshe if that's his style? Why would he have picked someone as brilliant as Yashaya to be such a profoundly important prophet. God picked people that he likes working with. He likes working with people that he finds inquisitive and bright and thoughtful, who are loyal, who are committed. And so,
who get the job done.
Yeah, he wants to get the job done through somebody that he enjoys working with. So, it's true that no one else was competing for the job, and I wasn't even competing for it, so that I got the job by default. But it's so much more to it than that. God has characteristics he likes, and he surrounds himself with and works through those he likes. So, yes, I was afforded this opportunity because no one else wanted to do it. However, there is every reason to conclude, based upon everything Yahweh has done in the past and what we've achieved together, that there was an aspect of my aptitude and attitude that Yahweh found appealing, or at least applicable to this job. And there's a number of things that God wanted a bull for this job, and there is no question that my personality is bullish.
I'll second that.
Yeah. I am not the lamb.
It's true.
When it comes to being passive and accommodating. I'm bullish.
Oh, you don't have a passive bone in your body.
No, and to be bullish, and we talk about a bullish and a bear market. The bull is the one who is quite certain that they're going to get this job done. It's going to have a positive outcome. That's the bull, and I think that's important. The skill set that God found the most serviceable is that I like to make connections, to go from knowing to understanding. And that is the substance of these books behind me. The thing that makes them so unique is that I take all of those who are interested in knowing God from believing to knowing, and then from knowing to understanding. And then there's a confidence. There's a lot of people who are not very confident, who think that confidence is arrogance, but it isn't at all.
No.
Confidence is an exceedingly powerful skill. And I've always had it. And Yahweh has honed it. And then there's steadfastness. There's the individual who just does not give up. And Yahweh finds that appealing as well. There's also a thing called consistency. If you're going to approach Yah's testimony, and I said, I'm going to go where the words lead, regardless of how many religious or political myths they skewer, and what I know that would be all of them. I've consistently taken that approach. I'm unique among people that I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong. And I like finding out when I'm wrong, because it gives me the opportunity to correct the record. And while I've never deliberately conveyed anything that's wrong, over time, I have refined what I have come to know, to the point now I can do this program. And we're not finding that there's anything in this program that we're trying to rewind and say, boy, I think I need to refine that or correct it, or somehow expand the background of it and explain it. No, we're now prepared to look you in the eye and say, this is the way it is. This is the proposition from God. The first person in 3,000 years who has been able to put the whole picture together.
There's another unique thing about the Choder, the Nakar, named Yada, is that we're willing to also call out those who are wrong.
Yes, I had a lovely lady. Lovely. I only know her by her post, but I certainly like her attitude. I was excoriating Donald Trump today because he had an exceedingly bad day, and I know he's going to betray Israel, and I know that he is clear and present danger to the world. And so she said, who would be better? And my first response is, that's not my job. I'm not here to suggest who might be a better candidate politically or promote an alternative. Yahweh wouldn't either. My job is to expose and condemn those in positions of leadership who are hostile to Israel, not to try to save America or any other country by offering a different political alternative. It's a vastly different scenario than when she said, well, it's a simple question to tell me who would be better. I said, well, there are 350 million Americans, and that would mean that 349,999,999 could be no worse. But
minus the 1 in 20, which are psychopaths.
I am always willing, no matter the person's position of honor or prestige or respect by some, I'll go after anyone who I see as a danger to God's people. And I know that Donald Trump is the worst in this regard. But there are many others. I mean, I'll go after Erdogan in this way as well. I, have torn Paul and Peter and Luke and Mark and Timothy to ribbons over their exceedingly hostile and demeaning and demonic approach to God's people.
The list we have against who we are hostile towards is very, very long, because the list of entities, people, and institutions that are hostile to Israel is very, very long.
Well, the most hostile to Israel right now are the rabbis.
Yeah. Well,
and so we're going
the
to
enemy within
repudiate them. And in politics, the most hostile individual to Israel right now is Benjamin Netanyahu. He has lost the last 2 wars, and he's pounding his chest like he won them. And yet Gaza war is over now, and Hamas is in power. Gaza is in ruins, and the world has come to hate Israel for having done so. And so nothing was achieved, and yet Israel's status in the world was destroyed. That is a complete and catastrophic loss in Gaza. And then in Iran, look what happened. The world again looks at Israel as the ultimate rogue state. And they've jeopardized their existence going after a nation between Iraq, Iran, 20 times larger in population, 100 times larger in geography, much richer in natural elements. And yet, now that it is over, the enriched nuclear fuel for bombs still exists. The factories have been damaged on the surface, but not below. The technology is still all there. The motivation now for a bomb is much greater. There is no chance to negotiate any delay in building that bomb or bombs. The missiles factories and the missiles themselves are available, and they will continue to be built. The relationship between China and Russia and Iran will strengthen. Israel made a bad situation worse. And they may have delayed the amalgamation of all of these elements into a bomb by a matter of months, but now they are certain that it will be deployed. And there's nothing they can do to stop it. It's just lose-lose wherever Israel turns. And now you have Netanyahu pounding his chest and saying that because he is so popular over his horrendous and suicidal mistakes in Iran, that he wants a quick election. And that he thinks he can ditch the influence of the Haredi over his popularity. And his platform is going to be, we're going to take showers and we're not going to get wet. We're going to negotiate a normalization deal with Saudi Arabia, but we're going to avoid a Palestinian state. Yep, that's like, making love to a virgin and retaining her virginity. No. It's
not likely.
It's not likely. It's insane. And yet this is his policy. He had a policy that was flawed in Gaza, that he was going to remove Hamas from power, disarm them, and eliminate them. And it proved impossible, just as I knew it would. And now the war is over and Gaza remains under the influence of Hamas. They're armed, they're deadly, and they're no less Hamas fighters now than there were when this war began.
The biggest mistake was saying that we are at war with Hamas, not with the people of Gaza. That's horseshit.
Well, the problem,
Hamas is Gaza. Gaza is Hamas.
well, the problem was declaring war against Hamas.
Yes.
Hamas didn't perpetrate October 7th.
Islam.
It was a product of Islam.
Problem.
I mean, they're not fighting a 7-front war. They're fighting a 1-front war.
Mhm.
If you don't know who your enemy is, how in the hell are you going to beat them?
Again, they're groping in the dark.
Yeah, I mean, how many doctors have been successful in curing disease when they only treat the symptoms?
Mhm.
And that is what Israel and Netanyahu have done, and destroyed Israel in the process. So we're here in a position where we recognize that Yahweh knew that this was going to be the mission to end all missions, that we were either going to be successful in awakening his people and calling them back home, getting them to change and to embrace his name and his beloved son, or the planet was going to be destroyed. So God said, I'm going to give this effort every opportunity to succeed, all the way to the point that he assured success. And here we are. So, as we have shared previously, it is in God's nature to share credit. That's just the way he goes about his business. That's one of the most remarkable things about him. So, while he is the sole reason that all of this is possible, he wants to acknowledge the contributions of others when they're serving on his behalf. And since Yahweh has mandated this, he has consistently followed this approach, even with Noah, and then with Abraham and Sarah, and then with Yishak and Jacob, and then with the children of Israel, and then with Moshe, and then with Shamuel, of course with Dod, then through his prophets, and now with Yada. This is God's style. He works through people, and he gives those people who engage with him enormous credit. He calls them his Ebed. They're his co-workers. One of the things he says constantly about Dod is that Dod is my co-worker, my associate. And so Yahweh wants to acknowledge the contribution of others who are serving with him. And since Yahweh has mandated this approach, it is important that we revisit the reason that he has consistently done so. As you recall, Yahweh is on record saying that he would not speak directly to his people and that he was leaving them to fend for themselves as a result. And it's a result of their propensity to be irritating and religious. Therefore, his voice at this time must be projected through an individual of his choosing. Otherwise, God would not be consistent with his prior edicts. This is, after all, what Israel requested and what Yahweh instituted at the beginning of the Exodus. They said, we don't want to hear you speak to us. We don't want to see you again, which means that the only way to communicate was through his chosen implements. And that's not easy. We know what happened to Moshe. He said, I give up. I want you to kill me. I can't do this job. These people are impossible.
Still true today.
Yeah, as so many have said, including Leah, that Rich as well, that the realization that Moshe gave up, the man that I have always viewed as having the most exemplary of all characters, and not only gave up, but had a complete meltdown and asked God to kill him because this job was impossible. That has had a profound impact on the sobriety of my approach, realizing that We need to be methodical. We need to be consistent. We need to be steadfast. And we also need Leah. The job can't be done alone. Even with Yahweh's 7 spirits, we need to respond as a team. We need Rich. We need Sir Kevin Shorts. We must have the Stevens and the Charles that maintain our outreach on YouTube. We just
And
can't
so many
do
more
it alone.
names.
Yeah, so many now that are assisting in what we're trying to achieve, and as even we're rebuilding this the website to be so much more interactive. This is an important mission, the most important mission of all time, and God wants it and knows it's going to be a success. He's told us it will be. And so the very fact that the man that we have equated with having the greatest character of all time, Moshe, the fact that he gave up, says that we must be especially confident and diligent and steadfast and committed to get this done. We can't blink. We can't look away. The determination, of course, that Yahweh would follow was dutifully recorded in Shemoth, Exodus 20:18 through 20. At the time, Yahweh emphatically stated that he would not speak directly to his people, which is why he foretold that there would be a final witness, that his coal voice would be projected, that someone would serve as the pay mouth of God, that there would be a herald, unobservant foreigner, Anachri, a voice calling out to Yisrael and to Yehudim. So Yahweh is addressing his people. Should you want to join his covenant, know that the path through his testimony is what leads there. And we need to navigate it by thinking adroitly.
And just a few paragraphs back, Yahweh did make it known this man has a name, Yada.
Yeah, the first step in this journey to God begins with acknowledging and revering, proclaiming Yahweh's name. If you don't take that first step, there are no other steps that you can take. You are precluded from approaching him until you acknowledge his name. And now that certainly is not all. There's the 5 conditions of the covenant. There are the 7 Moed Mikre. There's so much to learn and to know and to understand. But
we have lots of reading material, though, for you to enjoy.
We do. There's no shortage of learning material.
No.
If you've got questions, we have answers. So yet, even now, once again, prophetically declares Yahweh, should you choose to return and be restored, God's favorite word, I think, is shub. You know, my favorite might have been Asher, because it's the word that brought all of these words into view. I love Kara, which is an invitation to be welcomed into God's presence. I love Bien, because it is this process of making connections to understand. I obviously chose very early on Yada, because knowing is essential as the first step to understanding.
Yeah, without Yada, there's no Bien.
But I think that Yahweh's favorite word seems to be shub, which is you need to return. If you want to be restored, you need to return. Of your own volition and free will, come back so you can be fully recovered. It was written in the call imperative, shub. Shub, or no shub for you. You need to return all the way to me, not partially to me. You
Not
can't
sitting on the fence, not coming in high.
You can't have Talmud and Torah. You can't have
messy antics.
Faith and understanding. You can't have religion and relationship.
Nope.
You can't have G-D and Yahweh. You can't have a longing for an unknown Messiah endowed as the Messiah. You need to return all the way to Yahweh so that you can endure forever based upon his testimony by using your best judgment, your brain, by being disciplined and abstaining, and by shedding of tears of joy and sorrow, while contemplating the reasons for mourning over what was lost and gained. Yoel, Yahweh's God, 2:12. As Leah knows, I am about 99% head and 1% heart. Dode was 50-50. My wife is probably 90-10 in this regard. But I'm going to tell you, there have been a number of times here recently that I have shed a tear. I feel very sad for Yahweh and the fractured family that he has had to endure. I feel sad for our world and what I'm witnessing in terms of the degradation of humanity. God created us with an asama conscience so that we could discern right from wrong, to be moral and just and exercise good judgment. And yet it is forfeited among 99% of those on this planet.
The world has become a grotesquely immoral and disgusting place.
Yeah, the world's a giant cesspool now. And God's got to be very sad that he created us. He has to be sad that the world is just so ignorant and obnoxious, and not just his people, but everyone. And they're so few that he can celebrate. And yet he is overjoyed. He feels reason for celebrating because for the first time in a long time, he has a family again. There are those who are celebrating his name, who are radiating his light, who are studying his words, who are coming to understand his message,
who are saying his name,
who are proclaiming Yahweh's name, and who have fallen in love with his beloved son, recognizing that his son volunteered to open heaven's door to give us the opportunity to live forever by fulfilling Passover and then perfecting us so that we could enter God's company on Matzah, adopting us into the covenant family, following his footsteps as the firstborn of God on Bakodim. That he is the Messiah, that he is the former and returning king. This is reason for celebration, but also for tears, to think that for 3,000 years, his own people have denied him.
The worst part is, I think there were some of us who knew.
3 horrible false messiahs in the 3 Abrahamic religions. Jesus is nothing but a fraud, as was Bar Kokhba, as is Muhammad. All frauds, all counterfeits, crude products of identity theft.
Dode opened the door to lives, plural, and we did nothing but spit in his face.
So it is uncommon for Yahweh to use Ad Ani in conjunction with Shub, return. And while Ani reveals that God is addressing us in first person, Ad speaks of eternity and of testimony. As also insightful, Labab, which is typically rendered as heart, describes the exercise of good judgment and of using our conscience to influence our attitude and our inclinations. It is Yisrael who is lost and Yehudim who have gone astray. So they must change their mindset, their attitude relative to Yahweh, to return, to be restored to fellowship. And it will be by using their best judgment regarding his restoring testimony that they will ultimately prevail, at least those of the remnant who do. God's people will find Yahweh in his words. Then it will be their decision how they choose to respond, whether they return or they stay the present course. And all they should ponder is how being religious has led them from one catastrophe to the next. It is kind of like Trump resolves the catastrophe of yesterday by creating a new catastrophe today, so that people stop focusing on the failures of yesterday because, well, there's a new one emerging today. And that is what Jews have done. It's gone from one calamity to another. So while this voice can relate the message to Yehudim, the voice of Yahweh, the Kol, can encourage Jews. The Bashar, this herald of Yahweh, cannot decide for them. Heralds are messengers. The king decides. The herald conveys that message. How you respond to it is up to you. Free will and all.
Free will and all.
The final return to Yahweh, even during Shabuah, but particularly on Towrah, and then the homecoming on Kippurim, is going to be bittersweet. Nothing is better than knowing our Heavenly Father and experiencing His loving embrace as He empowers and enriches His children's lives. But since at this same time, the world is literally imploding in one hellish upheaval, with death and destruction stalking the planet, tears will be shed over what we humans have done to ourselves, what the rabbis have done to Jews. In addition, since most Yehudim will remain estranged, there will be a sense of sadness, especially since had these late harvested souls chosen to respond earlier, we may have spared additional lives through their experiences. This is one of the reasons that Leah says, respond now, not later, because if you respond now, you can play a role in encouraging others to respond, increasing the quality and the quantity of God's family. But if you respond late, then all you can do is save yourself. And when you consider saving yourself versus saving many, what's better? You're going to take one of those two into eternity. Do you want to go in knowing that I waited to the last minute and I focused on myself? I didn't share anything I learned with anyone else, and I was just barely there enough to make it in, and too bad for the rest of you? Or do you want to be someone who in eternity can smile before God and say, thank you for enabling me to be here and for giving me the opportunity to introduce you to all of these others individuals, so that when you go out on a grand excursion together, you'll all know that you work together to make the family richer. You know, when Dode thanks his Bashar Choder and Herald for the work that he has done, he says very clearly the wealth of the king is in his people and in his family. And so we have brought great joy and value to our king. And clearly that is a worthy endeavor. Religious dress up is part of the problem. It's not the solution. So please, black suits, no kippas, no headscarves or religious apparel. Be receptive. Listen and think. Don't go to a stone wall and bob your head next to it, passing notes to the stones as if you thought that they could read and respond to you. Now, recognizing that the rabbinical response to someone actually pronouncing Yahweh's name has been to tear their clothing, to scream bloody murder. This is a tongue-in-cheek retort, because God is telling them to open their minds rather than tear their cloaks. So, tear away and disassociate your hearts and minds. And without your deceitful and your treacherous garments. Return to Yahowah, your God. For indeed, he is compassionate and merciful. He is long-suffering, patient, and slow to anger, abounding in steadfast and loyal love. He will provide reassurance and encouragement, confidence and comfort during this malevolent and miserable ordeal. Yoel, Yahweh's God, Joel 2:13. So from this, we know that we are entering a period, we're just 11 months from it, 99 months from the end of it, 11 months from the beginning. That's going to be a miserable and malevolent ordeal. And during this time, God is going to provide reassurance and encouragement. He will do so through his two witnesses, Yada and Elia, but also through his words, through these YAHOWAH blog editions, through the books that you see behind me that are offered freely at yadayah.com. God is going to get us through this, individually and collectively. And so God says, tear away and disassociate your thinking from where it is now, because most Jews are either political or religious. They're pro-military, but they aren't pro-Yahowah. So you need to distance yourself, Israel, from your deceitful and treacherous garments. Stop it with the religious dress up. You should look at it the same way I do, Israel. When I see someone wearing that black morning suits, when I see them with their phylacteries and their tizzits, the whole religious garb that is wrapped around their arms, and as if you put a box on the back of your hand or on your forehead, you're somehow doing something that God asked you to do, and it's utter nonsense when you wear that stupid round halo kippah on your head. The worst of all is those that are dressed in the weasel hats. The curly cues coming down the sides of your cheeks. It's treacherous. It's deceitful. Religious apparel is repulsive to God. And you need to see it as such. And so Yahweh uses again that favorite word of his, shub. Shub for shub or no shub for you. Return to Yahweh. Shub to Yahweh. Because he is your God. I wonder why he didn't hyphenate Elohim. Must have missed the class in rabbinical school.
Yeah.
For indeed, he is compassionate. He is merciful. He is long-suffering. He is patient. He is slow to anger. He is steadfast. He demonstrates loyal love. Once you stop being religious, once you cease being political, once you return to him and pronounce his name, once you embrace all that his beloved son Dod represents, once you acknowledge the terms of the covenant, once you respond to each of his 7 invitations, Yahweh will be there with open arms, merciful, abounding in steadfast and loyal love. He isn't going to say, God, it took you long enough. He isn't going to say, I'm not sure about you. It still look a little filthy to me. He isn't going to say, I'm not going to get over the agony that you put me through all of these years. No. The moment you stop, it's all good. Hey, I was very political. I was very religious. But when I ceased these things and returned to Yahweh, it was instant acceptance. God is offering you the same opportunity. If you like the new terminology, he's got a deal.
You mean all we have to do is get out of our own way?
Mm-hmm.
That's it?
Yep.
Amazing.
Yeah, get out of your own way.
Get out of our own way.
Get over yourselves.
Definitely.
Embrace what Yahweh is offering. Listen to him for a change. Instead of praying to him and bobbing your head against a stone wall, bowing down to him, being religious.
Yabbering.
Just stop it all. Stop being religious. Engage in the relationship. Stop praying. Start listening.
So cut the crap and come to God on his terms.
Yes. And his terms are
Wow, so simple.
very straightforward. The terms
Amazing.
of God are to distance yourself by walking away from Babel, from this intermixing of religion and politics. Walk away from religion. Walk to him and become perfect, which means that you go through that doorway of life that is Pesach, that his beloved son fulfilled, and you have your guilt removed because Dod's nefesh soul carried it into Sheol to deposit it there and never to be seen again, enabling you to enter God's home on Bikurim during firstborn children. Perfect, immortal, empowered, and enriched. Walk to Yahweh and be perfected. Trust and rely upon Yahweh, which means that you need to know him, understand what he's offering, accept it, and stop relying on your political party, on your religious and societal
the rabbis
traditions.
who never told us this stuff.
Stop relying on the people who are leading you away from God and start relying on what God is offering. Then he says, closely examine and carefully consider the terms and conditions of the covenant. Means
it is.
You need to read these books about what the conditions of the covenant are and how they're presented. Take them to heart. Act upon them. Listen to what God says and respond in this regard. And then he says, if you're a man, you should be circumcised, and your sons you should circumcise on the 8th day, because it is the sign of the covenant and will help you and them remember exactly who God is and what he is offering, particularly in the conception of new life and in raising and conceiving a family. Those are the conditions of the covenant. Then recognize the benefits of the covenant are fulfilled by Dod and the relationship Dod had with Yahweh, whereas Bashar fulfilled Pesach, serving as the Passover lamb, and his soul, his nefesh soul, enabled matzah such that Yahweh and Dod could be reunited as father and son on Bikurim, delivering those 5 benefits of the covenant: eternal life, perfection, adoption, enrichment, and empowerment.
Oh, you mean no more unnamed mystery Messiah? Like mystery meat you used to have at school?
No
Wow.
more 10,000 rules on do nothing day for the Shabbat. No more rules on kosher
separate
eating.
kitchens and kosher eating,
You will
and
not need
put
to
your
worry
left
about.
shoe before your right shoe.
You can go and munch down on a cheeseburger. You know, you'll know what the 7 Moed Mikre are, and you won't celebrate things like Purim or Rosh Hashanah anymore. In fact, you'll toss away the book of Esther that gave you Purim because it's rubbish. And you'll know exactly how God is fulfilling his promises to you, and you'll be able to capitalize upon them, and you will be part of forevermore. But if you continue the way that you have over the past 3,400 years, it's goodbye. Good riddance. You won't be part of our eternity. And we'd like to have you there. So long as you get over yourselves, stop being obnoxious, disassociate from religion, stop being political, and trust and rely on Yahweh instead. Well, I thank you for being part of this. Rich, thank you for producing this program for us. We also thank you for listening. This has been a special episode on the Qatsyr harvest of the YAHOWAH blog. Good night.